Hi everyone, in this lesson we are going to recap and consolidate what we have learned with regards to water cycle. So the objectives of this lesson is to actually recap what you have understood about how water changes from one state to another, and also to understand the factors which affect the rate of evaporation. And for part 3 is something new for you. It is to understand the role of evaporation and condensation in water cycle in nature. Okay? So when water in the solid state, we call it ice, changes to water in the liquid state, which we call it water, what is the process called? Yeah, the process is called melting. Okay, and melting occurs at 0 degrees Celsius, and when melting occurs, heat must be gained. Okay, so heat gain is involved in melting. When we move from liquid to gas, what is that process called? Yes, it's called boiling. Also, boiling occurs at 100 degrees Celsius, and again heat is required. So heat gain is necessary for liquid or for water to change from liquid state to the gaseous state or the gas. Now you know that there is also another way to change water from liquid to gas, and that is what we call evaporation. Okay, now evaporation occurs at any temperature. It doesn't have to be only 100 degrees Celsius. Alright, and heat also must be required to change water from liquid to gas. So what are some similarities and differences between boiling and evaporation? Both changes from liquid to gas. Both involves heat gain. The only difference is boiling occurs only 100 degrees Celsius, while evaporation occurs at actually almost any temperature. Okay, it's just that how fast it evaporates. The rate of evaporation differs from different temperature. Now we are at the gas state. When we want to move back to the liquid state, what do we need to do? We need to go through what process? Yes, condensation. So condensation occurs on a cooler surface. Okay, and because of that, it requires heat loss. So when my hot water vapor, when it comes in contact with a cooler surface, it loses heat because heat flows from a hotter to a cooler region. So then my gas will actually form and will condense into water droplets. And that's why when you boil water, what you actually see, the clouds, is actually water that has already condensed into water droplets, because you cannot see gas. Remember that gas is invisible, so you actually cannot see water vapor. So the clouds that you see when your mother boils water, or the clouds in the sky, is actually tiny water droplets that congregate together. Okay? So then from liquid to solid, what is that process called? Yeah, freezing. Very good. Freezing also occurs at 0 degrees Celsius. So 0 degrees Celsius is a very important temperature because both melting and freezing occurs at that temperature. But the only difference is for freezing, I lose heat. But for melting, I must gain heat. So that's the only difference. When I gain heat, I melt. When I lose heat, I freeze. But both occurs at 0 degrees Celsius. So this is actually a summary of the whole entire change of state of water from solid, liquid to gas. So this diagram is very important. Write it down, put it on your wall, remember it, because this will give you a very good summary of how water changes from one state to another. Now we will move on to the next part, where it's the factors affecting the rate of evaporation. And through your experiment, you have already have learned that heat, wind, and exposed surface area, these three are factors that affects the rate of evaporation. So if my liquid or my water is in a hotter region, it actually evaporates faster. If I have wind, my water evaporates faster. And if I have it more exposed, it evaporates faster. So that's why when you hang clothes, you don't bunch them all together, you actually open and spread it out so that it dries faster. Or if you have a puddle of water on the floor or on your table, you actually, when you spread it out, you spread the puddle of water, you realize it dries a lot faster. Now the fourth factor which you don't learn is what we call humidity. Humidity basically is the amount of water vapor in the air. Because if I have a lot of water vapor in the air, then my water that is on the table, the water molecules have no space to go up into the atmosphere, into the air. And so that's why the rate of evaporation will be slower, because I cannot go up into the air. It's just like if the train, let's say we are taking an MRT train. If the train is empty, it's very easy for you to go into the train. You go in very quickly. Okay, but if the train is very crowded, you will take a long time to try to squeeze your way into the train. So it's the same concept, where the air is, if the air is very humid, high humidity, it's like a train that's very crowded. So my water vapor, my water molecules will take a long time to go up into the atmosphere, into the air. But if I have a low humidity, then it's like a train that's very empty. So my water vapor, my water molecules very, very quickly goes into the air. Okay, so that's humidity. If you want to learn more, please go and Google humidity, find out more. Now, please click up there if you want to see experiments of the factors that affects the rate of evaporation. It's going to be fun. Now, the last part is water cycle in nature. So our rain, why we get rain and why we get clouds, it's all because of water cycle. It's all because of evaporation and condensation. So basically, the water on the ground, okay, whether is it river or on the ground, it evaporates. Okay, because of heat. The sun is a good source of heat. It causes the water to evaporate. So when it evaporates, it will rise. Now, once it reaches up into the atmosphere, into the sky, it becomes the sky is much cooler. So when it's cooler, remember what happens? Because there's heat loss, the water vapors will condense. And when it condenses, it will form tiny water droplets and they will group together to form your clouds. So condensation occurs when your clouds condensation forms clouds. So when the clouds get too heavy, and then they will fall as rain. And then this whole process occurs over and over again. And this process is important because it provides us with water. So that's how evaporation and condensation affects us actually on a daily basis in nature. Cool, right? So I hope that you have a good recap of how water changes from one state to another, that you are very clear of the factors that affects the rate of evaporation, and you understand the role of evaporation and condensation in the water cycle itself. Thank you.